Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Nathan Araya, and I'm here to talk about something that keeps students up at night, frustrates employers every day, and costs our economy billions of dollars annually: the skills gap. We all know it exists. We see the statistics, we hear the complaints. Students graduate feeling unprepared, employers can't find qualified candidates, and somewhere in between, education is doing its best, but missing the mark. But here's what people don't know. I've actually closed this gap, not theoretically, not just on white paper, but in my classroom with real students with measurable results. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it and how you can too. Before we talk about solutions, let's name the source of the problem. The skills gap is human. We can't fix a skills gap without naming the fear. As a researcher and college professor, I discovered that students don't lack potential. They lack courage, clarity, and career skills with proof. When we design for those, the gap closes. The skills gap exists because we're teaching the right ideas, but the wrong way. We teach theory without giving students the courage to apply it. We teach concepts without the clarity to execute them. We give credentials without proof that students can actually do the work. And students are left with more questions than answers. Proof beats promises. So let's name the fear. Students are being challenged with something more than abstract theory. They're wrestling with worthiness. Am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? Am I ready for what's next? These questions are the heartbeat of the skills gap. Until we address the human reality, the fear of being unprepared for life, we're treating the symptom, not the source. Those questions from my students aren't just theirs, they were mine too. And they found me in a very specific year. In 2019, I became a professor. I walked into that classroom with so much hope. I had my syllabi printed, my PowerPoints were perfect, my reading lists were curated. I genuinely believed I was going to change lives. I had plans, y'all, big plans. And you know what? My students were incredible, smart, hardworking, curious. They did the readings, they participated in discussions, they wrote brilliant papers. But every traditional academic metric, we were essentially exceeding, but I had no idea what was coming. Everything changed. The classroom went virtual, the job market imploded, the entire world went into lockdown, and suddenly all those perfect syllabi, all those carefully curated reading lists, they felt inadequate. My students were logging in from their childhood bedrooms, from kitchen tables, from cars and parking lots with Wi-Fi. They were worried about their families, their futures, whether their degrees would even matter in whatever world was waiting on the other side of this. And I realized I wasn't just teaching anymore. I was actually responsible for preparing them for a job market that was literally changing in real time. And I had no idea what I was doing, if I was doing enough. So I had to make a choice. I had a choice. I could keep teaching the way I always had, theory heavy, concept focused, academically rigorous, the way I was trained, the way that earns tenure, the way that's safe. Or I can burn it all down and redesign education from the ground up. Now, I'm an academic. We don't like burning things down. We like incremental improvements, peer review, consensus. But this wasn't a time for incremental. This was a time for disruption. So I chose disruption. So I asked myself this question that would become my doctoral research. How do I close the skills gap for my students? Not how do I teach better lectures, not how do I make my PowerPoints more engaging, but how do I fundamentally close the gap between what I'm teaching and what the world actually demands? That's a different question. That's a harder question. That's the right question. So this was something I posted on Instagram a while back, a simple question. Do you feel like higher education is preparing people for jobs? I honestly thought the responses might be mixed, but 83% said no. I didn't post it to argue or get engagement. I actually posted as research, and I wanted to hear from my community, students, professionals, and educators about why people feel this way. And that's what really shaped part of my work with tech education. What I found in the responses was powerful. People were pointing out the disconnect between theory and application. One person said more hands-on approach instead of a theoretical approach would help. Another said if you're pre-med or law, higher ed prepares you because your path is clear, but for everyone else, you're left to figure it out on your own. That statement stuck with me because it reflects how structured fields have a built-in roadmap, but most students don't. They're navigating uncertainty with no framework for how to apply what they're learning. One response really hit home. It said we should take the Gen Ed model and apply a universal career focused curriculum regardless of major. That's exactly what tech education is about, helping institutions build career ready learning models that teach transferable skills across disciplines. Skills like communication, storytelling, project management, digital literacy, and creative problem solving, the things that employers actually value and that help students adapt across different industries. Someone else said something that perfectly captures the modern challenge. At this stage, many students don't know what they want to do. Some career areas won't even exist until after graduation. That's the reality we're facing. Education can't just prepare students for existing jobs. It has to prepare them to adapt, think critically, and use technology creatively and ethically in jobs that haven't even been invented yet. So the simple Instagram story became a focus group that validated my research. It showed that people aren't saying education is necessarily broken. They're saying it's outdated, and that's what tech education was built to solve, helping higher ed evolve from theory driven to future ready by integrating digital skills, AI literacy, and creative learning experiences that actually prepare students for the world that they're stepping into. So here's what I did. I've been researching ways that I can build this concept of career-ready classrooms for years. This was something that became my area of expertise within research and practice. And I had partnerships, real relationships with people at Meta, at Google, TikTok, Microsoft, Adobe, that I had as my board of advisors that I created. I would host meetings and ask, what do you actually need from graduates? But I did something no one else was doing as well. I invited my students into the design process. I wanted my students to not just be recipients of their education, but as designers, as partners, as the people who could tell me, this is what we need. This is what we're scared of. See, traditionally, advisory boards are alumni and industry professionals, and that makes sense. You get wisdom from people who are already made it, but I wanted to talk to people who are actually living the anxiety, the people who are about to face the job market. So we built it together in an advisory board where my friends from tech companies sat next to my students, where 20-year-olds could tell directors, here's what we actually need to learn. So why students? Why not just stick with industry experts who knew the landscape? Because students are the why. They're the reason we're all here. Every curriculum decision, every partnership, every innovation, it only matters if it serves them. When you bring students into the room, something magical happens. First, they tell you the truth. No politeness, no academic jargon, just the assignment feels pointless, or I have no idea how this helps me get a job. Second, they gain agency. They stop being passengers, they become drivers. And when you own your education, when you help design it, you show up differently. So they became contributors, not just recipients of their own education. And that changes everything. So we launched our first partnership, Meta's digital marketing certification program. I turned a self-directed, industry-recognized certification course into a 16-week course curriculum, and Meta gave us free exam vouchers for my students. Everything was perfect. This had to work, right? Real industry content, real credentials, real pathways to jobs. We had high hopes, very high hopes. And as the result, 30% 30% of my students passed the certification exam. Now, I could tell you that's not terrible. I could say, hey, 1 in 3 isn't bad for a first attempt, but I'm not going to do that because 30% felt like failure. These were brilliant minds, hardworking students, students who showed up, did the readings, participated in class discussions, turned in excellent projects, and 70% of them failed. So I had to ask myself, what went wrong? So I looked at the data. I analyzed the exam. I talked to my students who failed, and I found the gap. The class taught concepts, theory, frameworks, the what and the why. I discovered that 46% of the exam's content that was given to me by Meta tested critical thinking, problem solving under pressure, and applied skills, the how. So I was teaching them about digital marketing strategies. They could tell you what a conversion funnel is. They can explain the difference between organic and paid reach. They knew the vocabulary, but the exam said, here's a failing campaign, fix it. You have 90 seconds, and the students froze because knowing about something and being able to do something under pressure, those are completely different competencies. So the world needed them to run campaigns and solve problems. And I was sending them into a battle with a textbook of concepts when they needed a toolkit. So I went back to the advisory board, students, and industry folks, and I said, hey, we have to redesign everything. So I redesigned everything. First, team-based projects, because in the real world, you don't work alone, you collaborate, you negotiate, you compromise. In my classroom was going to be a mirror reality. Students needed to work in teams. Second, real ad campaigns for real businesses. No case studies from 10 years ago, no theoretical scenarios, real companies, real budgets, real stakes. Students would launch campaigns, present their strategies, execute on their work, then iterate based on performance and feedback from myself being the professor and the general class. We went from lecture hall to laboratory, from theory to practice, from knowing about marketing to doing marketing. In every project, students had to solve 5 questions or at least answer it. What was your strategy? How did you execute? What were the results? What did you learn from those results? What will you do differently next? These aren't fluffy questions. These are the questions every professional asks themselves after every project. This is how you develop critical thinking. This is how you build problem-solving muscles. This is how you learn to execute under pressure. And it was messy. Students failed, campaigns tanked, presentations bombed, but they learned more from those failures that they ever could from a textbook because that's what career courage looks like. The ability to fail, reflect, iterate, and try again. And that's what essentially became my classroom. So we bet that courage and creativity could be taught. If we were wrong, students would fail the certification. If we were right, they proved the system could change. 70%. The following year, 70% of my students passed the certification exam, a 40% increase in 1 year. Same exam, same difficulty, different approach. But here's the thing, and this is important, but the real transformation wasn't the test scores at all. Students developed what I call career courage. Career courage is the ability to take on a challenge you've never faced before and trust that you can figure it out. It's the ability to fail, learn from that failure, and iterate without losing confidence. It's the ability to execute under pressure with incomplete information. And here's the thing. This is exactly what employers demand. When I talk to my friends at Meta, at Google, Microsoft, they say we need people who can figure things out, who don't crumble when things go wrong, who can pivot. So here's an example of some of the comments that my students said in 2021 versus fall 2022. There were some students that were very eager. They said the content was, cool, but I wish actually got to use Ads Manager. That was in fall 2021, and then fall 2022. You hear things like the labs were great. Using Ads Manager helped me understand how each setting impacts results. So you see kind of like the before and after of the qualitative answers from a lot of my students. That 40% passing rate increase of redesigning the course entire format wasn't luck. It was the result of 4 years of doctoral research on one fundamental question. How do we close the skills gap? 4 years of testing, gathering data, working alongside students, employers, and educators from companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft, and Adobe. And what I found became a framework, a replicable research-backed system for building career-ready classrooms. According to the largest study of college students' confidence conducted by Strata and Gallup, um, only 34% of students believe they will graduate with the skills and knowledge needed to succeed in the job market. Think about that. Two-thirds of students, while they're still in school, already doubt their readiness. And this isn't hindsight. This is current students sensing a gap in real time. They're sitting in classrooms doing the work, getting good grades, and still worrying. Will my degree be enough? Do I have what employers want? A major 2024 study from Workplace Intelligence and Hewitt International Business School examining perspectives from both HR leaders and recent graduates revealed that 75% of employers feel recent graduates are underprepared for the workplace. Three out of four. That's not a few picky companies, that's a systemic problem. Employers aren't villains, they're trying to run businesses, serve customers, stay competitive. They want to hire graduates. But what new hires need is extensive training on basics. It strains everyone. So students feel unprepared, graduates lack confidence, employers confirm the gap. No one is the villain, so to speak. The system is broken. So here's what I discovered after 4 years of research. Closing the skills gap requires both systemic redesign and human transformation. Career-ready classrooms are built on three pillars. Industry integration. You cannot prepare students for work without workers at the table. I brought leaders from Meta, Google, Microsoft, and Adobe into my classroom as curriculum partners. Then I did something unusual. I put students in those same rooms, 20-year-olds and directors co-designing education together. Second, student agency. Most schools ask alumni what worked 5 years ago. I asked current students what they need right now. Students became curriculum architects. When they own their education, everything changes. And then skills with proof. We stopped grading on theory and started validating through demonstration, industry certifications, digital portfolios, real campaigns with real results. Students didn't just learn about marketing, they ran their own campaigns, presented findings, and earned credentials employers recognize. But here's what happened beneath the structure. As students worked through these three pillars, they developed something deeper: courage to take on challenges they never faced, clarity about how their knowledge translates into action, and career skills they could demonstrate under pressure. Industry integration gave them courage because they had real partners believing in them. Student agency gave them clarity because they understood why they were learning what they were learning. And then skills with proof gave them career ready competencies because they had evidence of execution. So the technical framework closes the systemic gap, and the human transformation closes the confidence gap. Together, they turn unprepared students into career ready professionals. Now, we don't claim jobs yet. We claim readiness. You can see placement is shared. Readiness is ours to own. Readiness that includes courage to try, clarity to execute, and skills with proof of work. Real projects, real portfolios, verified credentials, and access to 150 plus hiring orgs that was co-designed by industry professionals, my students and me. This became my doctoral research, 4 years of work, testing with students from diverse backgrounds, partnering with the world's leading tech companies on improving that courage, clarity, and skills transform outcomes. And ultimately, it became a book, Techucation, Bridging the Skills Gap Between Education and Employment. This is my story that became a roadmap, a methodology, and a system that only institutions can implement. So here's the truth about today. A diploma used to be the ultimate ticket. Today, it's only the starting point. Employers want portfolios that showcase real work, projects that mirror industry challenges, certifications that validate skills, proof of adaptability and creativity. The degree gets you into the room, but it's what you can do that gets you the job. Now, what employers are asking for is clear: portfolios that showcase real work, projects that mirror industry challenges, certifications that validate skills, proof of adaptability and creativity. They're not asking for perfection, they're asking for proof. Show me you can figure things out. Show me you can handle pressure. Show me you can learn from failures and iterate. That's what the Tech Education Framework builds, career ready professionals. But here's what matters most. The human side of education still anchors everything. Students who build resilience, communicate their value, and navigate uncertainty with confidence will thrive. Technologies matter, skills matter, credentials matter, but courage is what makes it all work. Because without the confidence to try, none of the rest matter. So education must evolve. Technology is reshaping every industry. AI is changing what work looks like. Students need adaptability as much as knowledge. Partnerships between universities and industry aren't optional anymore. They're essential. The question is, will we evolve fast enough? Will we keep preparing students for jobs that no longer exist? or will we prepare them for whatever comes next? This is tech education, industry partnerships, student agency, skills with proof, a research-backed model for closing the skills gap. I proved it works, 40% improvement in 1 year, but the real transformation wasn't just the test scores. Students left my classroom with industry partnerships, with ownership over their education, with portfolios and certifications that open doors to internships, job opportunities, and broader professional network. They had confidence, they had competence, they had proof, and that's what every student deserves. Education has a choice. We can keep relying on outdated models that leave students unprepared, keep teaching theory without practice, keep grading on memorization instead of application, or we can adapt proven frameworks that create career-ready graduates. We can give students courage to try, clarity to execute, and skills that prove they're ready. The old way is comfortable, the new way is disruptive, but only one of them actually works. The tech education approach is simple. Partner students with industry professionals, not as spectators, but as collaborators. Replace theory-only learning with hands-on projects, real companies, real budgets, real stakes. Validate skills through industry certifications, not just with grades, but proof that what the market recognizes. Build portfolios that prove competency, evidence of work, not just knowledge. This isn't revolutionary, but it is disruptive because most institutions aren't doing this. They're stuck in models designed for a world that no longer exists, but you don't have to be. Here's my challenge to you. If you're an educator, stop preparing students for the world you knew, prepare them for the world they'll face. Bring industry into your classroom. Bring students into your curriculum design. Give them real projects, real stakes, real proof. If you're an employer, stop complaining about unprepared graduates and start partnering with institutions. Share what you actually need. Offer real projects. Create pathways that lead to careers. If you're a student, demand more. Don't accept theory without application. Seek certifications, build portfolios, develop career courage. You're not just a vessel to be filled, but you're a professional in training. So it's important that you have that. And if you're an institution, adopt frameworks that work. Don't defend what's always been done and start asking what actually works. The tech education framework works, and I've proven it. Now it's your turn. Tech education dissertation term book that gives educators a proven framework to close the skills gap and build career-ready classrooms. Industry integration, student agency, and skills with proof. Courage, clarity, career skills. This book is available, the methodology is proven, and the framework is replicable. I also offer different types of ways to help different institutions. And so if you're interested in learning more about my research and doctoral work, I'm here to support because you don't have to accept the skills gap for what it is. You don't have to watch students just graduate feeling unprepared, and you don't have to hear employers say candidates aren't qualified. We can close this skills gap together. We can build classrooms where students develop courage, gain clarity, improve their skills. And when we do, students stop asking, am I enough? And start proving they are ready. Education has a choice to teach for yesterday's world or prepare for tomorrow's. This is Tech Education, the bridge between what we teach and what the world needs. Thank you.